Fun. Hey, you know how to trigger a room full of hackers? Cyber. There we go. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm actually trans robot, and cyber's a trigger word for me, so. Welcome to the presentation here for the PwnDrone, the modern airborne cyber threat. You know, who am I? My name's DevinGergen. I am a senior consultant for a company called CrowdStrike. I do incident response, digital forensics. Mostly I do penetration tests, and I exist on the offensive side because that's primarily where my background is. I spent 8 years in the Air Force doing operational security, as well as active cyber operations. You know, that's the Air Force term, don't kill me, for actual real-world attacks and defenses. So I also authored a memory parsing script called VShot that utilizes the volatility framework and multi-threads it. Check it out. It'll reduce your volatility time by like at least 2/3. I guarantee it. And I am an ultimate Frisbee wizard, so if you fall asleep during this talk, I will throw things at you. Cert soup for those of you who care about it. So today we'll go over the idea, where this kind of came from. A little bit of controversy around drones. I'll talk about the background with the military type tech. We'll discuss drones in the actual kill chain, and continue on with a little bit more details on the actual attacks from drones. So the idea was to be able to take commercialized materials that are readily available to the public, slap them together with duct tape, and somehow end up with a predator. You know, it really stems from just I went and gave a presentation on security at Bsides, Oklahoma, and I really wanted to, for my next talk, just do something cool. And I was like, well, you know what? Drones are cool. Let's see what fun we can figure out with them. So there's a lot of controversy surrounding drones nowadays, especially concerning privacy. You've got you know, these laws with regards to wiretapping, surveillance, reconnaissance, you know, everything that a drone does as far as capturing audio, capturing video. Really, we have laws in place that already cover that, but because it's a drone, people think it's spooky. You know, we have surveillance laws. If you're in a public space, expect that if somebody takes a picture of you, that it's still going to be legal on their end. As you see here in this screenshot from YouTube, there's this crazed woman who thought this boy was just being a peeping Tom on the beach flying his drone around, you know, taking pictures of women. But this is the kind of outrage that, you know, the privacy issue can really trigger on people. Some other issues are airspace, especially with regards to drones, flying too high or too low. You know, the FAA, fortunately for us, or unfortunately, does actually have control from the ground up. So, FAA authority, you know? It's actually a myth that anything 400 feet below, the FAA has no clearance or no weigh-in on, which actually comes from an old standard where commercial flights had to be at least 500 feet in the air. So that's kind of the background of where this myth came from, of a 400-foot, you know, I can do whatever I want zone. You know, in addition to that, we have no-fly zones. You've got people who have tried to use drones around airports. You have the White House incident that happened. Real quick, can anybody name the type of drone that flew over the fence to the White House? DJI Phantom. You get a T-shirt and a sticker. So yeah, we've got the thing that happened with the White House, Camp David, Groom Lake, Area 51. You know, I dare somebody to try and fly a drone over Area 51 and see how far they get. Yeah, pull. So one of the interesting things about the White House is that the White House isn't actually a no-fly zone physically. I put it on here in particular to note that DJI Phantom is actually implementing in their firmware for their drone technology a no-fly zone in Washington, D.C. So I think it's like 15 miles in circumference of the White House. They've programmed their new updated firmware to not fly. So, you know, what that means to the commercial off-the-shelf guys, they can't fly it there. What that means to a hacker or somebody like us You know, not much because we could just patch over that functionality. Challenge accepted. Another big controversy around drones is its modern use in warfare. We've all seen the news recently. We've all seen the controversy around President Obama and the drone strikes. But really what the warfare portion of drones have done have just made drones and made our actions militarily cheaper in the long run, which means we can do more of them at a more cost-efficient, more cost-efficient manner. In the end, the type of warfare that's being conducted with drones would have happened either way, but the only difference is now instead of having an F-18 Hornet launching from a aircraft carrier, we have a drone launching for, you know, airbase in Qatar. So a lot of, you know, tension around that subject. So with military drone tech actually started in the late 1950s when the United States Air Force actually started being concerned for the lives of its pilots. You know, being hit with a missile in an aircraft is not a pleasant thing, you know, especially when you have so many things that can go wrong. You can damage the ejection systems. You can actually kill the pilot upon impact. It's not like a Top Gun movie or Iron Eagle where, oh crap, they hit my wing, eject, eject. You know, we're actually losing guys. So they came up actually during Vietnam and had three primary drones that they came up with. And these are actually large, full-sized, automated UAVs, right? I don't know if you can see here with the picture of the Global Hawk, but that's actually, you know, we've got people standing next to the Global Hawk. This was the size of like a full F-4 type aircraft that had an ISR component to it. And when, you know, China and Russia had shot down some of our stuff in Vietnam, you know, the U.S.'s response to that was no comment. With modern technology, we think of the Global Hawk, which is really popular in the early and late 90s. We've got the Predator drones, which everybody knows from being able to do ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, as well as the Reaper drone, which drops the missiles. We've also got the RQ-170 Sentinel, which hit, everybody was very interested when Iran said that they had taken it down via a cyber hack, right? So that's an interesting point with regards to drones and the type of technology we use. And then we also have the experimental X-34B space-based UAV that had actually just landed, I think, a couple months ago after spending 22 consecutive months orbiting the Earth. So, you know, we've been, from the U.S. standpoint, in the game for a long time. Other countries that have drone programs, you know, include Russia, China. Israel is, you know, despite one of our, quote, allies, you know, they still have their own separate drone program. And then, of course, if Iran, and for fuck's sake, if North Korea has a drone program, we should be able to buy that shit off you know, Walmart, right? So, commercialized drones, right? Highly available. You've got the DJI Phantom, like we discussed earlier, and the capabilities just keep evolving. Availability keeps on growing. You've got these little hobby shops that are spawning up. You've got little components here and there that affect the weight of a drone and the way you fly it, and the software keeps improving too. You know, just looking through Google and a couple other catalogs, you've seen your $20 toys where you've got a small little controller and you can fly it around with Bluetooth, all the way up to like the $8,500, hey, I'm going to send it on a journey around the Earth type drone. Not necessarily that they have the range for that, but some people have big aspirations. You know, some of the typical capabilities, we are talking about the RF spectrum here when we're talking about drones. Within like the U.S. military type technology, we are actually launching our drones from, say, an air base in Kuwait, right? And that's actually being launched from Kuwait, but the signal for taking off being in Kuwait then gets transferred via satellite all the way down to Creech Air Force Base in Nevada. And we've got Air Force operators actually flying those via satellite globally around the world. So even though, you know, really the range can be unlimited depending upon your technology and what you have available.
I just need to make a quick announcement. But
Okay.
if anybody has a black van that they park in the back behind the venue, you have to move it because the taco truck cannot pull in and we will have no tacos. They have to be in the back.
Move your van.
Move your van right now.
You need to move it now.
I want tacos, so somebody better go move their van. we can move that van. We will break this. All right. So we've got the typical 2.5 to 5 gigahertz range. What this means in conventional terms is about 70 to 100 feet, depending upon conditions. With your typical, say, from an Android device to actual drone. This can actually be easily extended with an off-the-shelf router by mapping the router name, your ESSID, and using the router as a hot point in between your router and the drone, and actually attaching a much more powerful antenna to the router versus your Android or whatever other controlling device you have. Additionally, you can cut out the 802.11 spectrum completely. You're still going to be hanging out in the 2.4 gigahertz RF spectrum. You've still got plenty of space, but the benefit of that is that you will effectively not have to deal with all the overhead of TCP/IP. You'll have your command and control, your protocol all happening just pure over the RF spectrum, which actually is really great for individuals who are looking to make high-performance drones. There was just a race that just happened in Australia where they had at least 30 drones inside a building that had to make it at least 6 laps around and do like these little weave things. All of those drones were RF based instead of having the overhead of TCP/IP. So from a speed standpoint, off the shelf, it just depends on what drone you're using, depends on your motor, depends on the aerodynamics of the device, and of course your weather conditions, right? So in this case, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Being able to get in and out quickly might be a key for your specific objective. But either way, if you're flying 11 miles an hour over a building and dropping something off, well, I think that 11 miles an hour is going to work, and you're going to be able to save money in the long run when you're creating your attack platform. So, commercial use. We've got a lot of legitimate business uses that we're starting to see come into the light with regards to using drones, such as farming, being able to have your drone go out and look at your crops and observe. Essentially, we're using the military application for video, for pictures, to be able to keep track of crops, cattle, the whole 9 yards. While some people still like to use horses, you're going to see a bump in technology coming up and people actually being able to use drones and send drones out to do things, in, like, say, in Alaska, trying to scout for moose or something like that. Your negative degree weather, instead of sending people out to go do that and brave the weather, you can send out your drone, high flying up in the air, and be able to use that instead. And of course, there's the ever popular Pizza Hut and Amazon delivery drones, which I find is hilarious. It's great that they've come up with this wonderful concept. I feel like the weight distribution of your typical Amazon package, where I've got either a tiny micro USB with a gigantic box or a tiny box with a gigantic battery in it, is just completely variable there. And so they're going to have to figure out something in order to make that accurately work. So, drones in the kill chain. Real quick show of hands. Who knows about the kill chain? Okay, we got a couple people. The kill chain is based off of Lockheed Martin security researchers' work. It's trademarked as the cyber kill chain. Triggered. It's basically a 7-step process that every attack is going to have associated with it. Starting with reconnaissance. From your recon data, you weaponize something. So say if you're doing it from a pen test standpoint, you pull a document off of a website and you're able to determine that this PDF was created from Microsoft Word 2003, but it was made like 2 days ago. they're probably using some outdated software. I can create I can weaponize a document from that standpoint. Delivery goes down to exploitation, installation, command and control, and then you go on to your actual objectives of like, pilfering customer data, that kind of thing. So where do drones fit? From the standpoint, you've got reconnaissance, which we've kind of talked about already with, being able to take pictures, being able to take video, and then also Wi-Fi. We can actually equip these drones with something simple. And we'll talk about payloads later as a Raspberry Pi that's just designed to go and sniff Wi-Fi data. And then, of course, this is just my personal opinion. I think it also fits into delivery, as we've seen from Amazon, as we've seen from Domino's. But we can also use it as a delivery for our attack platform or our payloads. Really, all this is. Let me show you my busted-ass drone here. Which actually I'm missing a landing gear here. All this is a platform. You can put anything on this. What you're really limited by is the weight and the power, as well as and the power of your motors, as well as the available power that you have for a fuel source. So, semi-automated flight. It's really become trivial to be able to take a commercialized drone and send it off to perform a certain task because we have onboard computers that we can just throw instructions onto and send our drones off on its merry way. This specifically, this is a device for the AirDrone 2.0, which I have up here. I haven't bought that device yet, but I'm excited to play with it when I do. You plug it in via USB, and you're able to program your flight path as well as the height of your flight path within that actual GPS navigation piece. What this does is it allows you as an attacker to, include this and send your drone off its merry way to do it whatever ISR you want, to deliver whatever package you want, and then it allows it to come back to you at the end with full video capture, full audio capture, completely autonomous away from you. Once it's gone, it goes out, does its thing, and comes back. There are, however, risks that come with this. Threats to drones. You've got objects. It's the exact same type of threats that you face from your commercialized aircraft. You've got bird strikes. There's a wonderful YouTube video where a guy is out flying his Phantom drone, and he had a hawk come in and completely just take it out. I guess the hawk felt a little threatened, like it was invading its airspace. Power lines, trees, the normal objects. Not necessarily that a plane would really have to worry about because you'd be flying higher in a plane, but trees, especially when you're trying to do some sort of precision type navigation, power lines around your target areas as an attacker are all threats. And of course, people. This guy actually did a pretty good hoax that looked like a good hoax until it switched camera view. So it showed him going out, coming out, and this guy's coming out. He's going to shoot down this drone, but then it shows his buddy behind him filming him. So little unrealistic, attempts there. But if people feel that their privacy or their airspace is being violated, especially in certain areas of the country, wouldn't surprise if we hear more about laws or issues of trespassing and a person defending their rights by shooting down a drone. We're looking at Amazon here. So other threats, electronic-based threats, flight takeovers. As many of you know, we saw the whole spiel about Iran saying, "Oh, we hacked your stealth drone and we made it land," which as we all know from a technical standpoint, is not impossible. But what ended up happening is, I think the official word was that some of the damage on the video that they released made it look like it actually fell into a flat spin and crashed just perfect to maintain its integrity. What they've tried to do since then many believe is the video footage that they've released is create a mock-up of their own and show it taking off and landing, and oh, we've hacked your drone kind of thing. So very, very chest-beating, version of publicity that they're trying to get from it. That being said, a couple years ago, I think it was 2013, security researcher, I'll get you guys the name here later, created a Skyjack drone that he used. It's just a simple AR drone. I think he was using the AirDrone 1.0 at the time, and a Raspberry Pi device. And since the AR drones don't use any encryption on their Wi-Fi, their 802 ad hoc networks, he created, a simple bash script that once detected the AR drone network, de-authenticated whoever was connected to it, and ended up taking over that drone and flying it to a localized point. So it's a pretty great video the guy has on his website. Because it reminded me of playing with the drone in my basement because it went off somewhere else and then crashed into him. And I can't count the number of bruises I've had from that damn drone while working on this project. Signal jamming, it's legal, but it's still possible. If you throw a 2.4 gigahertz frequency signal at a receiving device with just garbage data at a much powerful level than the origin of that device is going to lose connection. It's not going to be able to interpret that wireless data. And there's, at that point, not much, CSMCA can do about it. That being said, you've also got GPS signal manipulation, which what many security researchers theorized is how Iran had gotten the stealth drone to actually drop was by manipulating the GPS signal on the drone itself to make the drone think that it was somewhere when it wasn't somewhere else to make it land. I will say this with my military experience, the level of technology, the level of encryption used, that event is highly unlikely. You've got different things. You've got different encryption, keys, algorithms, frequency and signal hopping, all sorts of defensive measures that our technology uses and that can be in use even in commercial piloting of aircraft, but not necessarily has this technology made into drones. Question?
That stuff only works if it's turned on. If somebody puts it in test mode and leaves the encryption off.
Right, exactly. So if somebody puts it in test mode, or if you set up your device to do a GPS navigated flight, right? You can set your device up to launch, where you'll launch it with your Android or iPhone-based device, and then once it makes it outside of your range, it'll kill that signal. Good point. So I read another article on GPS signal manipulation where a security research group was actually able to send the signal of 10 GPS satellites to a boat and made this crew go off course. Of course, the crew was in on it, so they knew that they thought that they were on course and were doing the right thing. But it's pretty interesting that we look at using electronic signals and GPS and how much we rely on it. I'm interested to see what an experienced sea captain would have done in that situation had they have done it at night and been comparing, say, the GPS data to the stars and their location. The old school way of doing it. Payloads and attacks. There are many options that we really have here from drone delivery. These are commercialized tools that are available. The Android-based Pony Express Pwn phone is just one that comes to mind. That's what I had attempted to turn this one into, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You do a custom build on your phones. You can use a Raspberry Pi or the Q-Droid. Now, I will say this. One thing to keep in mind when you're talking about your payload is while this is great, it has a lot of capability. Think about going out. This thing cost me $30 at Walmart. So I'm able to customize it. I can route my Android phone. But even though it has a battery, it has 3 or 4G antenna built into it, it has GPS built into it. Some would say, hey, that's a great payload. You've still got the weight of the screen. You've still got the weight of the case. But there's nothing stopping you from gutting it down. And then, of course, I'm excited to see about the modified HDMI sticks. A lot of fun, interesting things coming up where you've got the HDMI PCs all in one PC, where all you have to do is plug the HDMI stick into your monitor or TV or whatever. Intel just released one. A couple other companies are demoing them. A great way to bring your computer with you. Well, given the nature of HDMI and the kind of plugs, there's going to have to be some hardware hacking to get things to work properly. You're also going to have to include something maybe like a 3G card built into it, or some sort of mix and match. Excuse me. Or some sort of mix and match type of technology where you use like the HDMI stick, or use the Raspberry Pi and say a mobile hotspot that you've gutted down to its bare components for weight, and you've got the connectivity of the mobile hotspot. You've got the Raspberry Pi hooked up. You've got it hooked back into you via VPN, and maybe a solar panel that you bought off of Amazon. So, as far as launching these payloads goes, it's really rather easy depending upon the type of drone that you're using. Can you imagine being able to set up your own device network where you've got, say, a Raspberry Pi or an Android phone, cell phone with a solar panel on the back, and you, say, want to fly that around. You've got different types of targets, but you've also got the opportunity to maybe make a botnet, throw it on top of a Starbucks, throw 5 or 6 of them on top of a Starbucks, and start conducting cyber operations from Starbucks or McDonald's all over 3G/4G, and then you've got the solar panel recharging it. So, another quick question: can anybody name what the heck is it? The space probe that just recently came back to life? You already got one. It's the, I believe it's pronounced Fly or whatever. But good effort for guessing. You get my last T-shirt. Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit more accurate normally. This has got these bright lights in my eyes. So being able to take your payload, attach a solar panel to it, you may be able to also include some logic into it, where it's got some sort of low power component that's set up to turn off when it's low on power and turn back on and become available, beacon out to your infrastructure via 3G, 4G, over the SS7 network, when it comes back on, when it has enough power to come back on and be of use to you. So it's pretty interesting. We can also think about this in terms of a corporate site being able to drop maybe you don't want to maybe you want to use a Atheros-based Wi-Fi card, gut it down, put it on there, and you want to sit down there and you want to sniff Wi-Fi information. You want to get as much as possible, maybe get the WPA key exchange, do some DOF attacks, and then you're able to take that data, and instead of trying to run it and crack it on the device itself, which is going to waste battery power, you're going to transfer that data via 3G, 4G to your back end, to your Amazon infrastructure, to your Vultr, servers, and just crunch the data there. So, some issues with the payloads. We talked about the weight of the battery, the screen, and really what you need to do as much as possible is strip it down. But it also depends upon what your payload is. If your drone, if your delivery device can handle the weight of that payload and you don't need to modify it, why go through the trouble? And then again, we talk about longevity, adding the solar panel, but you also, by adding a solar panel, add weight. So these are things to think about when you're kind of creating your different payloads for delivery via drone. As we talked about, with different attacks, we've got wireless, we got the 802 spectrum, we've got Kismet, Aircrack NG, and actually this phone is running, it's Android, but it's got a rooted environment with Kali on it. And inside of Kali is, of course, we've got Kismet and Aircrack NG suite. The issue specifically with this drone, and I actually had it working for a little bit with this until I bricked it for a little bit, had to reformat it. The type of drivers that you use. You still got to have support for your wireless hardware to match with your mobile hardware. This is an LG Optimus. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this if you're trying to make a payload for actual packet injection or packet sniffing, but it certainly allows you from a 3G, 4G standpoint with a VPN to be able to connect to another network and do your your command control over that 3G, 4G network into your target data, your target network. So if you've already done your recon, you've got the password, it might work out for you. It's a cheaper solution. That's the thing is when you're talking about working with your own type of wireless cards or gutting them down, you do have to have that driver availability, or you have to work on coding your own driver and integrating that within the ROM of the device that you're going to be connecting it to. And you can easily, like, with this is a normal USB device. You've got these, I think they're OTR cables. Just plug them into your device. Some of the modern, Androids with KitKat and above will recognize these devices immediately. Some of them do not. It's really a crapshoot on, and this is the drawback of Android, right? Is the device manufacturer and what that device manufacturer really wants to include support for on their device. This device was a big pain in the ass. One of the things that of this LG phone is that the manufacturer, SmartTalk, did not include a boot iOS or a boot ROM on this. So there's some further hacking that we can do. I fiddled with it, got it to work a little bit, not as much as I would have wanted to have, but basically without that having a device that supports boot ROM, without a device that you can root, without a device that you can upload your own ROM to support your devices, you're kind of stuck with your basic level capabilities of Android. Now that being said, we think about the 802 spectrum, we think about DGN, very popular for offices nowadays. What we don't often think about, is from the standpoint of Bluetooth or Zigbee wireless. A lot of industrial sites are using Zigbee for small power components that don't really have great security built into the Zigbee protocol. So if I'm able to take my drone and drop off a Zigbee-enabled device into an industrial park, or say a fertilizer plant, and I'm able to get up over the walls, fly it over, drop it down, and just wait for data, sniff it, analyze the protocol, break the protocol. Maybe I want to flip a switch within Zigbee, which actually also controls chlorine distribution throughout a plant or something like that. Very, very dangerous stuff when you have unsecured wireless protocols that people, and security experts, they're like, oh, hey, it's insecure here, but you know what? It's just so short range, nobody can reach it. Additionally, you've got the attacks like the DAuth attacks. There's actually a wonderful bash script. Just look up Google DAuth bomb. Pretty slick, and it's pretty straightforward. All it does is sit in, and works with your wireless card to detect new networks. You can do like frequency hopping. I think the original script is just set to do it on one network, but you can easily modify that to switch channels, switch ESSIDs, detect whatever you can, and continue to signal hop and DAuth as much as possible while it's going through there. Now, who's heard of Scapy, Python framework? A couple people. There's a great Python framework called Scapy that's wonderful for crafting TCP and IP type data and packets. What you can actually do is put your wireless card in promiscuous mode and just sit there and let raw data come into it and throw up a Python script that's going to detect that raw data. And when it starts seeing authentication, when it starts seeing Wi-Fi, you can pull that data out and actually just throw out raw signal data that's going to de-authenticate much faster than just a bash script. And then, as we talked earlier, even though signal jamming is possible, it's hard to do, especially even from a wireless standpoint. When we talked about signal jamming earlier, we discussed how you needed to have a more powerful signal than the source that you were trying to jam. That being said, when you have those kind of situations, the wireless platform and the amount of power that you need to put into overriding that wireless signal really depends on A, the location of where your attack's coming from, and B, how long you can keep that up given your mobile platform. We do have limits here with our battery life. Maybe it might be a little different with a little RC engine, but then you've got the offset of that being super loud while it's happening. As we talked earlier at the attack issues, you got to have the proper software, got to have the proper support. A good rule of thumb, especially when you're working with Android devices, is if it's on cygenmod.org, you can likely get it to work with a wireless device that you'd use then to attack your target. So, some resources here, as far as putting Linux on your phone, really, this was super easy, very low tech. A lot of people have already done this stuff for you. Download Linux Deploy for Android. We said CygenMod here. Use your Android built-in VPN connection connected to a PPTP type network. That will connect over your 3G, 4G. You're able to use SSH to log into your Android. You're able to launch something like Kali Linux within a chrooted device or chrooted environment. And really sorry about this. I couldn't get the proper the VNC session to work properly here, but real quick, that is it launching. That's this device launching Kali right now. It runs SSH. It runs VNC. I can connect this via 3G, 4G. Operate it through my VPN. I can connect this to a target network, and I can use Metasploit straight off of this device here. And what's great about this is it's already got its battery built in. I don't have to rely on a drone battery in order for power to power this device, and I can leave it. So in conclusion, the portion of the CISSP that deals with wall heights is now completely irrelevant. And really what it gets down to, and I know it looks like we're going to end a little bit early here, and that's good because I want to have an open discussion, but I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear your creative thoughts. The sky is literally the limit with drones. I know, bad joke, sorry. And then, in the opening keynote, there is no silver bullet. Attacks are becoming more and more complex. You have to use multiple technologies to make your attacks more effective because you do have companies, you do have organizations using their defense in depth. You've got them patching every patch Tuesday on the dot every Tuesday. So you really have to kind of be creative and work around different technologies and use different technologies to include or to accomplish your goals. So think of it like launching a Java-based applet and getting a user to click yes. You've already used Java. You've got your payload. Maybe it's an interpreter. Maybe you've got a core. You have some money. You can use Core Impact, some sort of RAT. Just wrote a PowerShell for my last pen test. PowerShell backdoor. And you're using different technologies at that aspect. And you can mix and match, really. And what it gets down to is attacks nowadays, especially with drones, from a physical security standpoint, are easy, and they are cheap. The Airborne 2.0, I'm not trying to advertise here. I should get kickbacks for this, right? Was $400. $400. An adversary, there it goes. Adversary could use this, go to the store with cash, pick one up at Brookstone, and you be able to use it as a delivery platform. And, given the budgets of some of our more prevalent adversaries in today's cybersecurity world, you've got China, you've got Russia, you've got Iran with a full-on cyber program. Given their budgets that they have to do this stuff, it's not out of the realm of possibility. With that, I want to open it up for some questions and discussion. Here's my contact info. Highway to the danger zone. Questions? Right. So the question was, is there any concern about using the 802.11 spectrum with certain types of drones? Yes, there is concern because the same type of frequencies that those drones may use for command and control would also be the same types of frequencies that your device or your payload is going to use. You have, this is, I think this runs on 802.11n by default. And, so maybe you want to switch it. Maybe you want to, go outside the realm of, okay, well, I know my target base is going to use 802.11n. Maybe I want to switch to an AirDrone 1.0 and use a really powerful directional antenna in order to avoid interference with my device, my attack platform. So just real quick, I want to show you how easy this is. And while that's happening, other questions? Yes, actually, there's a lot of research on the open internet where people have done different connections. They've done different types of hacks, and a lot of the hacks that they do are based around being able to, as a hobbyist, make the drone fly longer in the air. So they'll add like a long antenna or a deployable antenna. So certainly the capabilities there exist. So once we're connected here, I actually had a really cool demo that I was going to do. Unfortunately, I forgot my joystick here, but. Fun fact, the German military, for their control of the air drones, uses a Logitech 3D Pro. So I've got one at home. I love it. It's a lot of fun. Let's get this going here. Oh. Coming down. Ah. Live demos, right? And this is what I was talking about earlier with bruising the crap out of my fingers. If you're going to play with this stuff, don't be afraid to get hurt. I've got a 1.0 of these things. It's there we go. Come on up. Maybe. Run away. Real quick, while I'm doing this, any other questions? I've got a bunch of swag I can give out to you guys. Sure. Yes. So there's a wonderful paper on that called Skynet, which actually was, go figure, was actually a huge inspiration for this talk. I had read it back in 2011, and they have a great, I believe they were using the AirDrone 1.0 at the time, and they were using 3G as well as the GPS device over 3G to fly their drone around. Everything that I said, and I want to give full credit to them, is nothing new. These theories, this about this platform has been around for years. My goal with this talk today was just to open up the discussion and make sure that bring it to light within the modern day, taking a modern day look at it and how easy it really is to do these days. Come on. There we go. Oh. God damn it. Anyways. So, I actually racked the crap out of this last night, so I'm probably experiencing some balance issues. What I wanted to show is that this off-the-shelf Walmart phone, it can sit here, and it really does sit on here very well. And in order to deliver it, all it takes is a crash landing. With my earlier demo, I had it programmed to do a flip, and I was going to make a joke about it being a flip phone. But it's really easy to do. I mean, you don't even need to use a phone for your attack platform. Throw a USB stick on here. Stick it right in here, and have this thing do a flip that throws it to the ground. In the parking lot somewhere of a walled-off building. Somebody's going to pick up that USB stick. Someone's going to plug it in. Maybe you want to get crazy, throw a CD on here, or find some sort of disk launcher or something like that. but that you know, these possibilities do exist. Come on now. Come on. Stop. Stop. Right? Ah, fuck it. I tried. Well, what I'm going to do is after this talk here, I'm going to get this working, and then I'll throw a video up on YouTube and show you guys it. Really, it's quite trivial to do. You know, that being said, we still got 15 minutes here. I know everybody's hungry for lunch. Other questions? Concerns? Oh, yes.
Have you ever considered actually building your own drone?
Yes. Yes. So that's, you know, the goal of this talk was to do a commercial off the shelf. Really, there are a lot of mod kits out there. There's a huge community of people who do this as a hobby. You know, there's videos out there about these little drones these guys make up with powerful engines, little teeny weight, and they can get them flying, you know, 100, 200 miles an hour, which is actually really great, except for when they crash and they just turn into obliterated pulp. I think I heard a question over here earlier asking if I had insurance for my drone. I do not, but certainly that begs, you know, right, homeowners insurance, which you could put it under. You could in theory put it under. Now, as far as insurance goes, you know, if you're going to have drone insurance, you know, you got to have cyber insurance. What happens if you get hacked? Who should be responsible for that? Who should pay who? You know, we've got our legal counsel at CrowdStrike, Steve Chabinsky, is always on Capitol Hill, trying to, you know, say, hey, you know, we should have more protections from the consumer side to be able to understand, you know, the Chinese nation-state threat, the Russian nation-state threat, and be able to pursue legal repercussions with those entities, whether or not they're using drones, and you know, that's up to them. Sure.
The technology of the drone that will follow you if you're riding a bike or whatever.
Right.
What is the communication signal? What do you have to have on it? It's not the same controller.
No. So there's a couple of different ones. There's actually a drone just announced. I think I know what you're. Yeah. What is it?
DJI.
The DJI. So there's a different company. I know DJI does a lot of different drones. The DJI does have a following drone. There was one that was designed to be compact that would fold out, and you just literally throw it, and depending upon what you set it up with this little wrist device, it would follow you. So, you know, it depends on the distance. Bluetooth, despite all popular belief, can go beyond 10 meters. So it just requires more power to be able to accomplish. Most of these things, especially in commercial spaces, are 802.11. Any other? Awesome. Well, thank you guys today. You know, don't eat too much. We've got people presenting after here who would like your attention, so we don't need that lunchtime sleepiness. Thank you all.